Welcome to Wii Missed, where I find and play those Nintendo Wii games that got lost in time. Today we are looking at the last game ever released in the short-lived but relatively popular Trauma Center series for the Nintendo DS and Wii. Episode 4, Trauma Team. So I've obviously heard of the Trauma Center games before over the years, but never played any of them. So I'll be jumping into this one fairly blind, but by all accounts, from what I've read, this should really not be an issue, with Trauma Team seeming to be one of the most praised games of any of them, even if it didn't sell all that well. Trauma Team came out in 2010, with the previous Trauma Center Wii games releasing earlier in the console lifespan in 2006 and 2007. Out of all three of these games, the concept of Trauma Team seemed the most interesting to me on the surface, and being the last one ever released, I thought that might bode well for the control scheme and gameplay, which we'll obviously dive into shortly. You'll be playing as a team of 6 different medical professionals: a surgeon, a paramedic, an endoscopic doctor, a diagnostician, an orthopedic surgeon, and a forensic scientist. Each have their own interesting background and storyline that all somewhat tie together at the end. Before we dive into the gameplay, a quick editing note that I'm playing all these Wii games for this series on original hardware using component cables in 480p, which is, in my opinion, the best way to play Wii games without them being stretched out or looking unnatural on a modern television. Now, Trauma Team by default, because it was released so late in the Wii lifespan, actually has a widescreen resolution, so hence the presentation of this video will look a little bit different than the previous episodes so far. When booting up Trauma Team, we get an introductory cutscene, which is more in line with like an early 2000s TV show, but regardless, this polished presentation is a pretty good sign for what lies ahead. The game is divided into roughly 6 episodes each for each of the 6 main characters, which when completed, you'll play another series of episodes where they all kind of come together. They will weave in and out of each other's storylines initially, so you will see them pop up at times. Prior to that, you can play these individual episodes in any order you'd like, which is a little weird at first, but it all starts to make sense the more you play. You could, for example, play all 6 episodes for the surgeon at once before moving on to the next member of the Trauma Team. I would not recommend that though, because some of the story and character stuff would not make sense if you don't play it in order, like do episode 1 for character 1, episode 1 for character 2, and so on. At the start of each of these episodes, you're usually given a few minutes of story for some sort of side plot, which introduces what you'll be doing. Think of them like a little ER or CSI episode. And yeah, the game is almost entirely voice acted from start to finish, something that again shows off the presentation side to the game, and something that I was not expecting. You're then given the option to play in solo or in co-op, with the exception of the physician and the forensic scientist, which are single player only, and you'll see why in a bit. After performing the surgery or medical procedure, you're then given a score based on how well you performed, but as long as you make it to the end and, well, your patient doesn't die, the story will advance. I played most of the game on Resident or Normal difficulty, but there is an easier mode called Intern for those who want a more relaxed pace. To make this game a little easier to digest, we'll go through each of the 6 main doctors one by one.
The only time you'll be out of cuffs is during the operation. Remember, this is 5 years off your sentence. Questions?
None. I'm just here to do my business.
Starting with the basic surgeon, known in the game by his prisoner number CRS-01. In the very first episode, we're introduced to this character through some vague interactions with him, in prison. But ultimately, he's given the opportunity to lower his life sentence if he performs surgeries for a local hospital called Resurgam, which is where all these characters are technically employed. He falls into an amnesia trope of not remembering anything except how to perform surgeries, but wants to prove his worth to the rest of the team. The gameplay here is what I would call traditional trauma center gameplay from what I understand from the previous games. Essentially, we're given a patient with some sort of condition that needs treated before his vitals at the top of the screen reach 0, which is an omnipresent game over condition that forces you to essentially restart the episode from scratch if you fail. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a tool wheel where you'll select which medical device you want to use. Things like scalpels, syringes, forceps, and many more, just to name a few. Each tool then has a specific motion or IR aiming control to memorize. For example, the knife requires you to carefully trace a line on screen, or the forceps require you to grab and drag skin or other items. There are also special tools that occasionally are needed that are episode specific, which keep each patient and episode interesting, something that is applied to most of the other characters as well.
Maria Torres here. Oh, hey, Chief.
Maria, a fire's broken out on 14th. Get there and hurry.
Why are you calling me? I'm off duty.
Everyone else is out right now. Stop complaining and go.
Ugh, all right, but I better see a bonus next payday.
Next up is our paramedic, Maria Torres, who is a bit of a wild card and enjoys calling other people out for pretty much anything, but ultimately seems to be all about saving lives, even if she goes about it in a more abrupt way. That being said, gameplay here is similar to the surgeon gameplay, except your tools for treating patients aren't the same and are a bit more limited in that sense. Instead of, say, cutting open a patient to address some sort of life or death ailment, you're mostly just patching up characters in emergencies enough so they simply stay alive and then get transported to the hospital. Remember, you're a paramedic with her, so you don't have all the hospital's tools at your disposal as you're out in the real world. For example, there's an early episode where a ship crashes and you have to use a box cutter and pen to save the victims from dying. What ups the difficulty with these episodes a bit is that if you look at the top of the screen, you're often treating multiple patients at the same time, which I think really showcases the difficulty of what first responders may often come across in real life. For example, another episode early on here, you're the first one on a scene of a collapsed Ferris wheel, and there are several severely injured patients with all different injuries, and it's up to you to juggle them in any order where they all survive. So even though there aren't as many tools to use from the nunchuck wheel in the bottom left, the sense of urgency with her episodes is apparent and probably the strongest out of all the characters, especially as patients go in and out of cardiac arrest, and that pressure really comes through and usually rewarding if you do succeed.
Hurry up and give me the cash! Make it quick!
Not so fast, criminal!
Who the hell are you?
I am the ambassador of love and justice, Captain Eagle! No crime will be tolerated on my watch!
What? You masked freak! I'm gonna shoot!
Our third character is Hank Freebird, who is an orthopedic surgeon. That means you'll be dealing more with broken bones and larger scale operations versus the paramedic and prisoner surgeon characters before. The gameplay also changes a bit, with the game telling you which tool to use at each time, focusing more on the precision of your work and less about you trying to avoid the patients from dying and selecting the right tool on the fly. Essentially, the difficulty comes in that you can only make up to 5 or 10 mistakes depending on the episode before you would be forced to restart, which challenges both the Wii Remote IR abilities and your own steady hand. It honestly feels like a massive version of the Mario Party minigame Crazy Cutters, if anyone remembers that, and it's a ton of fun. I really enjoyed all of Hank's episodes. I wouldn't want a whole game revolved around this mechanic per se, but it works well here. Also, some of Hank's other tools are more rugged, like a hammer or a stapler, and of course you'll be using motion controls for that, but it all works extremely well. Hank also has a very interesting storyline to me, being that he moonlights as a superhero, which makes the visual novel style work nicely. I won't spoil where the story goes with him, but I was a bit more engaged with his character than some of the other ones before.
Lady Tomoe, they are ready to see you now.
I will be right there.
Speaking of other characters, up next is Tomoe, who is also a type of surgeon, but one that specializes in endoscopic procedures, which are controlled completely different than all the other doctors so far. You'll be guiding an endoscope through a patient's inner organs and treating them that way versus, well, cutting them open in surgery. The controls here felt clunky at first, as you'll be using the nunchuck more than the Wii remote to aim your selections. But once you get used to it, you can zip around quickly enough with minimal mistakes. Her story arc involves being tied to an honorable Japanese family, but instead of following her family goals for the clan, she wants to become a doctor in America, and she must be literally the best because the hospital is constantly letting her fly in and out on helicopters and bring in her own equipment and basically do whatever she wants. Most of the time, the challenge here is navigating and finding things you need to treat within the time limit. It almost feels like you're flying a little ship around, and even though the pushing motion you have to do with the Wii remote gets annoying, it's a decent break from the traditional characters. The footage here is from one of the later episodes where I was trying to save Tomoe's own father, and you were given a 10-minute timer before he would pass. Trying to zip around quickly and find all the wounds is just another example of how pressure-filled this game is at times, even on normal difficulty.
Satisfied?
Are you kidding? I need to see how he does before I decide. Besides, his entourage is a pain in the ass, too.
What do you mean by that?
Don't treat me like an idiot, G-Man. I see a lot of new faces around here. Curious faces.
Doctor, we're...
Whoa. I try not to get involved in other people's jobs. Let's just agree not to interfere with each other. Got it?
Thanks for your cooperation.
Our next character is Dr. Gabriel Cunningham, who specializes as a diagnostician, or someone who mostly talks to and examines patients to determine their illness. This is when the gameplay completely changes to more of an analytical point-and-click experience. As patients come in, you'll have to talk to them, and if they mention something that seems unusual, you'll click on it and keep track of all their symptoms. One cool thing here is when using the stethoscope, you'll actually hold the Wii remote up to your ear and try to listen to the patient's heartbeats or breaths through the Wii remote speaker, and it makes the game more immersive than you might think. You'll also perform exams like MRIs, CT scans, ultrasounds, to name a few, and you'll use visual cues to find anomalies. Gabe's story is also pretty entertaining as he spends most of the game bantering with the new computer his boss forces him to use that is kind of like a poor man's AI that he thinks he's smarter than, and it contains some of the more entertaining dialogue in the whole game. As a character though, he's a mess, he's going through a divorce, so it's somewhat fun to see what happens to him in the end and see his character grow.
Ah, come in.
Did you call for me, Chief Wayne?
Ah, good morning, Naomi. It seems the FBI needs your expertise. I'd like you to head over to the scene immediately.
I'm a medical examiner, not a police officer.
Don't be like that. I can't just turn the government down.
Fine. Well then.
And finally, the last character is our forensic scientist, Naomi Kimishima. Similar to Gabe's gameplay, this is more of a point-and-click experience, while also navigating a bunch of dialogue trees to get the answers you need. What is different is you're actually playing the role of a crime scene investigator, detective, and mortician all at once. Essentially, a crime is committed that involves the murder of someone, usually, and using clues from the crime scene, body, and police interviews, you'll have to figure out what happened. While this is not realistic per se, it makes for a mini deduction game that is pretty enjoyable. Unfortunately, these episodes are all extremely drawn out, and the main gameplay hook here is identifying and linking clues that you discover with these cards that appear on screen. The annoying part is that these cards don't always make sense, and you'll end up just clicking everything you can with no penalty, making it more of an interactive story than an actual game. Some can drag on for pushing a couple hours, which is simply too much for what it is and makes the game feel a bit unbalanced. Most of her stories feel a little out of place in terms of gameplay, but in terms of the main story, she is a very important character. Quick side note too, I know this game is rated T for teen, but it's pretty much as mature of an experience you'll find on the Wii. Besides just the general cursing and dialogue in general, the game approaches a lot of subjects like abuse, suicide, malpractice, assault, just to name a few. It usually approaches these subjects in a colorful and exaggerated way, being that it's a visual novel with over-the-top characters, but still it's just something to be aware of, and a little out of place for a Wii game, at least traditionally. I mean, there's literally a scene towards the end of Naomi's storyline where a child steals a teddy bear that is secretly a bomb and then it detonates a few seconds later, so yeah, just be ready for pretty much anything. Now, her very last episode is more of this escape room game where you have to find clues to deactivate a series of bombs, and it is by far the best episode of hers, and it's just too bad it's a bit of a slog to get to this point for her character's gameplay.
Let's begin the operation.
Right. We'll treat whatever we find.
Now, once you play through all 6 characters' individual episodes, the game opens a new series of about 10 more episodes, I think it was, which act kind of as a conclusion to the story. All 6 of the doctors will interact and work more closely together to try to help and solve a massive problem that I won't spoil too much. It takes at least 20 or so in-game hours to get to this point in the game, so I did feel pretty invested at this point into what would happen. It's also refreshing to see the doctors work together a bit to solve something, where early on they only kind of get along just barely and bicker a lot. Obviously, the name of the game is Trauma Team, and this ending section is where it earns its name, revealing at the very end that you, the player, are the 7th member of the Trauma Team. But yeah, once this is played out, credits roll and the game is complete. Actually, I will spoil the story here with the ending episodes just a little, which is technically 14 in total, and 2 or 3 for each of the doctors. It's just too interesting not to. So basically, the game's been hinting at something bigger, I guess we'll say, throughout the rest of it. It comes to light here when essentially a viral epidemic causes mass casualties, and some are pretty graphic, as you can see. There's this black bruise-like substance of sorts that shows up pretty much everywhere, on people's skin, as tumors, on bones, and even the inside of a cat. This infection thing is so deadly that a quarantine is immediately set up, and that's mostly where our trauma team comes in to try and save the day. It's eventually revealed that patient 0 to this infection is the daughter of the same doctor that mentored our prisoner surgeon at the start of the game. This mentor actually should have been the one blamed for the original bioterrorism attack that caused his super long prisoner sentence. Long story short, this mentor doctor actually shoots and kills Rosalia, his immune daughter, in a last-ditch attempt to stop the virus. Her corpse is discovered in a field of blue flowers by our doctors surrounded by butterflies, and the disease was actually spreading from the migration of said monarch butterflies. Wild stuff, but anyways, by finding patient 0, an antidote is created and the trauma team has saved the day.
Gotta suppress the hemorrhaging. Damn it, vitals don't look good.
So just a couple other points I want to make. This is the first game in the Wii series so far where the story plays a massive element in the game design. At first, I found the story to be way over the top and somewhat off-putting. I mean, it leads off with the main character being locked away, serving something like 250 years in a max security prison for his role in an apparent mass murder bioterrorism attack, and has amnesia, but is still able to perform detailed surgeries. Followed by another character who is an amazing orthopedic surgeon, yet moonlights as a superhero, and those are some of the less extreme examples. But when you think about it, is that really all that different from all those medical drama TV shows like ER, 911, Grey's Anatomy, The Pit, to name a more recent one, all of them? Yeah, it's presented differently being that this is a video game in an over-the-top and often tongue-in-cheek visual novel style, but conceptually it is kind of the same thing. Now, the Venn diagram of people that enjoy those TV shows and also enjoy retro video games might be ridiculously small, but those that do would probably love this game based on concept alone. Believe it or not, a live-action TV series was actually in development based on the concept of this game, and actually made it as far as a pilot episode. It was centered around 4 medical specialists who performed illegal surgeries for patients who couldn't afford them. So yeah, the concept isn't exactly the same as the game, but isn't that a bit wild? A TV show based on a Wii game versus, say, the other way around. I'll link to the full pilot episode in the video description in case anyone is curious enough to check that out.
1, 2, 3. Come on.
Oh, God.
Come on, T. Hey, stop! Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?
So yeah, that's Trauma Team, which concludes after about 25 or so hours of gameplay, longer if you're like me and consistently fail surgeries. Starting with the gameplay, I'm going to give that a solid B. Basically, anytime you were performing some sort of surgery or medical procedure or completing some sort of action mechanic, it was exactly as the developers intended. Equal parts fun and intense, and honestly unlike anything I've ever played before in a video game. Now, the gameplay score is knocked down from an A only because of some slightly annoying design choices when it comes to the game, interrupting you a bit too much, I think, and the forensic scientist deduction gameplay was not that great and really dragged on, but everything else was awesome. On to controls, and that's a solid A. The entire game uses the Wii Remote in incredibly creative ways, introducing new things constantly, and almost all were implemented extremely well, which in turn leads to a Wii-ness grade of an A+, which this might actually be the first A+ I've given out for any category, for any game in this series so far. It honestly feels like Trauma Team pushes the Wii Remote to its limit, and besides simply being a Wii exclusive, is also something that could only ever exist on the console based on design choices in general. Technical here gets an A-. There were only a couple times where I felt the game didn't register what I was trying to do, which for a game designed entirely around the precision of motion and IR pointing controls is pretty remarkable. And finally, longevity gets an A. As weird as the story is at times, the visual style and presentation looks pretty good, even today, and that allows the game to hold up well even a decade later. Overall, this adds up to a solid A grade from me. Honestly, Trauma Team is kind of what I wanted to get from this video series, a game that is so different than anything I normally play, and quite frankly different than anything else in the gaming market today in general, but at the same time, it also can't really be replicated because of what the Wii is and was. It may not be everyone's cup of tea from a story perspective. I'm honestly still deciding that aspect for me too, but that's okay because Trauma Team at its core is such a unique snapshot of the Wii era of gaming in the best way possible. I'm extremely happy I gave it a chance, and well, you should too.